Welcome back, everyone, to the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. Engaging topics to help restaurants build their brands, rock their profits, and deliver amazing guest service experiences. What a cool episode we have. I am talking to Mr. Brian Goldberg. He is a conceptualizer, an entrepreneur turned restaurateur who is the founder of Mr. Bing, which is a fast casual concept now in New York City, specializing in Bing, which is a quintessential street food that is Chinese. So with that said, welcome to the show, Brian. How are you, man?
Thanks, Roger. I'm doing well. Happy to be here.
I'm really psyched that you're here, Brian. So let's talk about your backstory. Before Mr. Bing, had you had any restaurant or hospitality industry experience?
No. Basically, my background, so I started Mr. Bing in Hong Kong, and then I brought it back to New York a couple of years ago. So it's been about 6 years since I started Mr. Bing in its initial form. But prior to that, no, I was in finance for about 9 or 10 years, was my main career. I was a journalist for a couple of TV stations, producer and a reporter for a few TV programs. And before that, a semi-professional athlete for a few years up until the Olympics. So this is kind of my fourth career. The only food experience I had was I was a waiter in college for a little bit in Boston, and I had a couple of odd jobs here and there, pushing an ice cream cart around in San Francisco.
Okay, well that sort of counts.
Little things,
Okay.
a little bit.
You have a really interesting background, and you have done lots of different things. And you were telling me just before we started the recording that you were also an Olympic Luger, right? Which is a really, really cool thing. I mean, we're at a winter sports resort here. We just completed the Winter Olympics, which were absolutely, spectacular. Obviously, we were watching luge and skeleton and all those cool sports. How'd you get into that? Before we get into the restaurant story, I want to know about luge.
Yeah, well, the luge stuff, in a way, it led to the restaurant stuff eventually, which I'll explain later. But so I grew up in New York, in the suburbs of New York City, and I started skiing maybe when I was around 12. I was a very competitive athlete in general. Swimming was my main sport. My mom was a lifeguard and a swim instructor, so I swam competitively, played baseball competitively, played golf in high school and college, NCAA Division III. But in high school, when I was up skiing in Lake Placid for just a little winter vacation, I saw the luge track there. And I'd always seen luge on TV and thought it was really cool, super fast, and I just always thought it would be something I would be relatively good at, given kind of how luge works with balance and sort of upper body strength from the start.
Yes.
I took a run as a tourist. You could pay like $30 and take a run down the track on one of the tourist sleds, and I just loved it. And there was a TV commercial during the '94 the Lillehammer Olympics. From the USA Luge program, and it said if you want to try out for the USA Luge team for the development program, call 1-800-USA-LUGE. And I called the number and I signed up for this tryout in the summertime down in near New York City. It was like a luge sled on wheels kind of thing, and they were going around with the U.S. Olympic luge, national team coaches and athletes, and trying to recruit people that had some kind of innate skill or a feel for luge. I did all right, but they, I was 17 years old at the time, and they were looking for 10-year-olds, really young kids, 8, 9, 10, 11, to develop at a younger age. Mm-hmm. So I didn't get in at that time. So I had a scholarship to college, sitting in front of me, and I took that. And I went to college for 4 years in Boston, but afterwards, I majored in Chinese in college, and so they gave me I called the luge program back after college. This is 1999, 98, 99. And I said, hey, it's me. Remember me? And they did. There's not a lot of people in the luge world. So, and they offered me the chance to go to Japan for part of this International Luge Federation development program, where they were trying to get athletes from non-traditional luge countries to do luge. Basically, the International Luge Federation, and any sport in the Olympics for that matter, if you don't have enough countries participating in a particular sport around the world, then that sport risks getting sort of kicked out of the Olympics because it's not international enough. So because I have like a bit of a Jewish background or ancestry, I was able to get dual citizenship in Israel.
Yes.
Even though I don't speak Hebrew at all and not religious at all. But it was like a loophole basically to sort of, basically get onto the World Cup circuit and hopefully qualify for the Olympics one day.
Awesome.
And that's basically what happened. It took a long time and a lot of training and, was sponsored by the International Luge Federation. I obtained dual Israeli citizenship specifically for this, and got on the Junior World Cup circuit and the Senior World Cup circuit, and was for 3 years pretty much a full-time luge athlete. And my coach was a two-time gold medalist from Austria. I trained with them and a lot of other Germans and Austrians and French and Norwegians and everybody.
Yes, fantastic.
And,
I love it.
Yeah, for 3 years.
What a ride, Brian! What a ride!
Yeah, it was just a whole thing that I did from the ages really of like from 99 to 2002 up to the Salt Lake Olympics in 2002 when I qualified for those games. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, Israel's Olympic Federation policy was that even if you qualified for the Olympics, if you're not a medal contender, if you're not like top 5 or top 10 in the world, you don't go to the Olympics. Israel doesn't really abide by the, Bernard Coubertin's like philosophy of like to participate in the Olympics is wonderful. It's more about
absolutely
you have to win or don't go. So
I see.
It was a really sad ending to a really long, hard journey.
Yes. Inspirational though.
It was. I mean, it changed my life. I was in the fittest shape I've ever been, and raced with world-class athletes and trained with them for 3 years, and it opened up a lot of doors for me career-wise afterwards. And it was. Israel had a long, tough history in the Olympics. Munich '72, what happened, and this was right after the 9/11 World Trade Center attack too. So terrorism was super high. So it was just wasn't in the cards, But it was an amazing experience. Changed my life. Made some of my best friends during those years, and it's still part of my life, in some ways. So, yeah.
Well, I'm really glad you shared that story. Before we talk about the entrepreneurial journey that you were on, why don't you tell us exactly what is Bing and why is it so popular in China and now here in New York?
Yeah, happy to. So when I majored in Chinese in college 20 years ago at Brandeis in Boston, I had to study abroad for 6 months to become fluent in Mandarin and have a full-on language experience. And every morning before school, I'd wake up and I'd be hungry for breakfast before class started. And outside our dorm room would be a little old lady on the street on the back of a bicycle cart making these kind of these crepes, these breakfast crepes, basically.
Yes.
And that's called jianbing, or Bing for short. It's basically a grilled crepe or a grilled pancake, savory. It's a savory Chinese crepe that's basically folded into a sandwich, and it's a mung bean flour, rice flour, wheat flour crepe with herbs and spices, scrambled egg on spread around the surface, black and white sesame seeds, scallions. Then you flip it over and you put a sweet hoisin sauce, crispy chili paste, cilantro, crunchy wontons, and then if you want, you can fill it with extra proteins like Peking duck, barbecue pork, drunken chicken, or kimchi. You can get really creative with it. Put brisket inside. You put all sorts of stuff. Or you can just leave it the way it is and just fold it up. And it's the classic vegetarian version is kind of the classic, most common way of serving it without the meats inside. It's a real common person's breakfast in Beijing and in northern China in general, Shanghai as well. It's kind of what they eat on the way to work. It fills you up for half the day or all day in some cases. And we just loved it. It was like our favorite food that we would eat every day in China. And when I came back, we missed it so much. We always used to just kind of jokingly talk about starting a business selling things in New York or in Boston. I mean, it's just an idea. But then a couple of years later in graduate school, I was at Columbia University doing my master's degree in Asian studies, and I took some classes at the business school. And we had to write a plan for a business just as an academic project about how to write a business plan. And I wrote it it was called Goldberg's Chinese Crepes at the time. Now it's it's Mr. Bing. I didn't have time to actually start it or money at the time to start it when I was 22 years old, 24 years old. So I shelved it, and I had a couple of careers, in sports and journalism and then finance. And then I started it 6 years ago in Hong Kong as like a little passion project while working as an investment banker. And it took off. We opened a tiny little store there. It was very popular with people from mainland China who were working in Hong Kong, and with expats, Americans, British people, and Aussies. And I quit my finance job and made it a full-time thing. Opened 2 stores, got a little ahead of myself, made some mistakes, had no restaurant experience, had a great brand, a great food and recipe, and a great style of what we were doing. But we made some mistakes with real estate and some partnerships with people, and we ended up closing it in Hong Kong after 2 years.
2 years.
And I sold my apartment in Hong Kong. I fortunately invested in some property in Hong Kong that did pretty well, and that gave me some freedom to take some time off and move back to New York after I was 13 years away. I lived in Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, and China, and Japan a bit. I'm an only child. My parents were getting older. They retired from New York down to Florida. And it was just time to sort of come home and reevaluate what to do. So at that time, I was 38 years old and not married yet. And, came back to New York. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, whether to go back into finance or to restart Mr. Bing again. And I decided to restart Mr. Bing because it was really my passion. It was like my mission to bring this food, Bings from China to America and make it a thing, make it a real trend, make it something that Americans had never had before, but then gradually learn what it is, and it becomes part of the lexicon or part of the fabric of American food culture. Like a new Chinese food, a new authentic old Chinese food that had never been here. And there's a whole history in terms of why this food never came here from China before, even though it's been around hundreds of years. It's from northern China, and American Chinese food is largely influenced from southern China. And there's a lot of stories I can tell you about that. But I decided to reopen Mr. Bing here because I found the whole food hall trend here happening, and like Epicurean food halls, like the newer modern version of food courts instead of Panda Express and McDonald's and Papa John's. They were building food halls in New York and Boston that had, like Faneuil Hall, for example, or Chelsea Market.
Of course, been to those.
That were starting to curate really cool food concepts that didn't require a lot of space, like little 10 by 10 boxes or 15 by 15 little kiosks that specialized in maybe 1 or 2 menu items. And that's kind of high volume, and it's got a cool little vibe, but you don't have to spend a lot of money to open a restaurant with like 50 or 100 seats and all that stuff. So Genbing really lends itself to that kind of environment, like kiosks or bicycle carts or just like very small format thing. And we make the food freshly in front of the customer. It's all about the show. It's all about the art. It's all about the performance of our staff making this thing in front of you in 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and it's custom made to how you like it. We got that opportunity to start doing these, not to go into the food hall right away, but one of the companies here called Urban Space, which does a lot of these street food festivals, outdoor markets, and food halls. They loved our concept. They loved what I did. They loved my story. And basically within a week of talking to them, they offered us a pop-up on this, for the Christmas market, 2.5 years ago in Times Square. And just like pulled it all together, built a little kiosk, bought a couple of crate machines, got our ingredients in Chinatown, found a couple of friends of friends to help do it, and opened a bank account, incorporated an LLC, and we were open for business, like just like that, and with very, very little investment, much less than what it cost to open in Hong Kong. And we started rolling from there. We started doing pop-ups. We sort of did the circuit around New York, all the outdoor sort of festivals for about a year and a half.
Awesome.
like Madison Square Eats, Broadway Bites, the Bryant Park Winter Village. There's like a ton of like street festivals here.
And that's brand building too. I mean, you're getting the product and the awareness and the name out in front of the public. They're seeing it here, they're seeing it there, and then suddenly when you have a physical location, you've got awareness and recognition.
Yeah.
And people love the food. I think that's a great, great story. That is so cool. It sounds to me that, Bing is to the Chinese as, pizza is to Italy. And it's a traditional thing. You mentioned it's hundreds of years old, and it's those old traditions. And now pizza obviously is huge in America, and so could Mr. Bing be, right? Is that part of the plan for the future? I mean, do you see expansion nationwide? Maybe we're jumping into this prematurely, but that's kind of what I see going on here.
Yeah, it's a big thing in northern China.
Yeah.
People in Hong Kong and southern China had like never heard of it until a few years ago, So it's a very regional thing. It's like a Chinese version of a dosa, if you know what dosas are from India. There's that, or it's in a way you can call it a Chinese burrito or a Chinese pizza.
Sure.
The way pizza has many types, like grandma pizza, Sicilian pizza, thin crust, thick, deep dish, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There's different types of Bings, different types of Genbings. So Shanghai version versus Beijing version versus Shandong version. There's different versions of it, different types of flours they use, different ways they do it, but it's all the similar category. I do believe it can become a big thing here. 20 years ago, people didn't really know what sushi was or burritos or bubble tea. Those are all like really ethnic foods that have kind of gone mainstream now.
Definitely
right?
True.
Especially in urban cities, right? So I believe strongly that Bings can become a subcategory of Chinese food that can become very, very mainstream in America, especially in all the urban centers, for sure. And it's a great breakfast, traditionally a breakfast food, actually. In China, it's mostly a breakfast food. We do it mostly as a lunch and dinner, but it is like they call it the Chinese Egg McMao, is a nickname for the Bings.
I can see that, but it's more versatile here. It's like people can eat these at all times of the day, and it just becomes a favorite food, right? It's a go-to, it's a quick serve, it's a fast eat, It's a satisfying food. I mean, all these things. You mentioned there's lots of different varieties of Bing. Is there one particular variety that you specialize in? I mean, is it Shanghai Bing that you're offering? What is it?
We're doing the Beijing.
Beijing. I'm sorry. Thank you. Beijing.
Yeah,
gotcha.
We're the Beijing version. The best thing to do is look at the videos on our website. Go to our homepage and you'll see the video in high speed, like in 10 seconds.
I'm going to put that on the show notes. We're going to definitely put your website and all your contact info, but that's great. If you got videos, I want to see this. I want the audience to see it as well.
Yeah. You want me to I can, if my laptop's in the other room, I could open it and show you simultaneously the video, but my laptop's not next to me right now.
No worries. We'll let the audience go to it at their convenience, but we're definitely going to put that information in.
Okay. Yeah, so the Beijing version is the egg on the outside.
Yeah.
And the Shanghai version, the egg ends up on the inside.
Okay.
And the batter, the crepe ends up a little crispier in the Shanghai version. On the Beijing version, it's a slightly softer crepe with a crunchy on the inside. So there's little differences like that, textural differences, what's on the inside, what's on the outside. Those are like the subtle differences between, and the different types of sauces you can put inside. Things like that. Those are the differences. Yeah.
Sounds delicious. And it's dinner time here in Sun Valley, so you're making me hungry.
Yeah.
So in the urban space, you won a Vendy Award. Like you had this really hot concept right off the bat. You were Rookie of the Year, and you won this thing called the Vendy, right?
Yeah. So there's a thing that honors all the street food vendors here in New York, whether you're a food truck or a cart or stands, things like that. So we won that award in 2016 for the best new street food concept of the city, the Rookie of the Year for the Vendy Award.
Great. Now you still have pop-up locations around Manhattan, and then you have a bricks and mortar location. Is that one in the East Village? And there's more planned for the future. Tell us about your locations.
Yeah. So after doing the 1 year of pop-ups, Urban Space finally gave us our first permanent location as a kiosk in the food hall, in their flagship permanent food hall in Midtown, right next to Grand Central Station.
Beautiful location.
Like 45th and Vanderbilt. It is. It's
non-stop traffic, right?
It's crazy.
I can only imagine.
Like, I don't know, 30,000 people a day that walk past that food hall, past that food hall.
You must have like 15 shifts of staff, right? That's crazy.
We have two or three shifts depending.
Yeah,
we're awesome. We're just starting to grow the breakfast business. It's mostly a lunch and dinner thing.
Still.
But yeah, that's our first one that opened in January 2017, so about a year and 3 months ago. And then towards the end of last year, we opened a small brick and mortar in East Village, which has like 15 bar stool seats. And it does the bings, and it does handmade dumplings and Chinese side salads and mochi ice cream and drinks, like Chinese-style drinks, Chinese herbal teas. And we have beer as well, beer and wine license. So we do Chinese beers, Chinese types of beers. So that's the thing, bings, dumplings, salads, mochi ice cream, and we're launching bubble tea. We are launching bubble tea next week, and that's a Taiwanese thing technically, not a mainland Chinese Beijing thing.
Yeah,
but goes together very well.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, similar demographic. I still love bubble tea, but yeah. So the East Village store, the Vanderbilt Food Hall Kiosks. We launched a cart, which is almost like a truck. It's like a 10 by 5 cart that is permanently parked in Flatiron, between Italy and Shake Shack on 24th Street and 5th Avenue and Broadway, where all three of those streets intersect. That is where Italy is, Mario Batali's Italy, and the original Danny Meyer Shake Shack in Madison Square Park. So we had a cart there, outside on the street. And we have a bicycle rickshaw cart that we use for catering, which we're trying to find a permanent home for. We use it for catering events and pop-ups now. It's really cool. You can see that on our website too. It's got an old vintage bicycle cart attached to the front of it, so it makes it look a bit like an old Chinese cart.
Yeah. Do you ride it to the event, or do you transport it?
No, we transport it.
Okay.
I'm
just kidding.
No, it can be done. Not this version, but you can do a real bicycle version, like an Italian gelato cart. Yeah,
totally authentic, and it's obviously logoed up, Mr. Bing, and all that sort of thing.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep, you can. Yeah, it is. We open in Times Square on Thursday.
We'll check that out too.
It's a shipping container kiosk, permanently placed smack in the middle of Times Square in the pedestrian walkway next to the TKTS steps where people buy their Broadway tickets.
Nice.
So that's cool. And then the fifth one opens in Chelsea, a small brick and mortar where our office and commissary is. That opens in May. So that'll be 5, plus the catering business.
Fantastic. So did the concept fly right from the start? Did you have to explain exactly what John Bing was to New Yorkers and tourists? I mean, how was the whole introduction when you first started? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, we have to explain it to people every day still.
Okay.
More and more people are learning what it is in New York, but most people still don't know what it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they have a lot of tourists in New York, so they've never seen it. So it is a constant education process. I mean, it did fly right off the bat in the beginning. People loved it. We kept moving up the ranks in terms of the pop-up rankings in terms of where you get to go. But
nice.
It is very much in education. You constantly have to have that video playing, showing how it's made, like the high-speed 10-second time-lapse video.
That's very cool.
We always have a screen on at every location that we do, at every event that we do, showing how it's made.
That's genius. That'll draw people in, that alone. Just, wow, what's going on here? Oh, I can see it. I can smell it. It's a visual, physical thing. It's the aromas. It's all that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
You gotta have that. Yeah, you have to. Even though it's being made freshly in front of you, it takes a few minutes. And when people are walking by, they don't have patience. So in 5 seconds, they want to see what it is. And then they stay. They see it. They're and then their mouth waters. And then they... Yeah. They have it. And we always tell the little story, the founder story, which is basically, in one sentence, our founder, Brian, from New York, used to live in China, studied Chinese, ate things every day, loved it so much, brought it back to New York. Here we are. We have to tell that story. And then we show a big black and white photo of the old street cart that I used to go to in Beijing. Beautiful. So that makes them realize
humble beginnings.
So basically,
Very cool.
So
Yeah, keep it simple, but that is simple and it's powerful at the same time. That's awesome. Let me ask you, Brian, what are the biggest challenges that you're facing as a restaurant operator today? Or, even with a fast casual concept and you've got little locations all over the place, you're opening new locations. In this business, a very challenging business, thousands of details, what do you find to be your biggest challenges?
How to achieve and maintain profitability, right? You can have a great brand, great product, rave customer reviews, and there's always something that makes it hard to make a buck. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
I do.
Whether it's the rent being too high, or vendors, overcharging you for this, that, and the other thing. Labor costs skyrocketing. Minimum wage now in New York City is $13 an hour, and it's going up to $15 an hour in January.
Sure.
Food costs, right?
Yes.
Wastage. Choosing the right spot. It's such a location-dependent business. Real estate. If you're in the food business, retail food business, you are de facto in the real estate business. You got to know real estate. You got to understand how that works. 50 feet difference, being on the same block, but one corner versus the other corner can make or break your business, depending on where the foot traffic is, or depending on just different dynamics. So it's always about watching your top line and your bottom line. And that means a lot of things. It's recruiting good staff, finding good people that make good brand ambassadors, that make good cashiers, that can simultaneously explain to people what the product is and be enthusiastic. They're not the owners of the business; they work for us. But you want to find people that care about the product and that are excited to teach people what things are and make them well. Right? It's a lot to ask. It's like you're asking for performers who are also chefs. Right?
You're speaking my language. This is exactly these are my beliefs, and this is what I practiced for 20 plus years. I totally get it. I love it. That is absolutely, that sums it up, what it's like to do business in hospitality and restaurants, especially in an expensive city like New York. However, you did say that it was even more challenging, perhaps more expensive in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Rent in Hong Kong is crazy. It's equal or in some spots higher than Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And what makes it hard is that it's very hard to sell food in Hong Kong for reasonable prices. There's so much cheap street food and cheap Chinese food there that the locals there just have come to expect super cheap pricing on food. But if you're making something that's high quality and handmade and requires a lot of labor and performance, they're still not willing to pay the price that it costs to make that. So it's hard to be profitable. And then the landlords, the leases that you get in Hong Kong are typically, believe it or not, only 2 years long. And then if you're doing well, they jack the rent up because they see you're doing well. If you're not doing well, they don't care. They just kick you out and they find another tenant to take over. It's a real tough situation there. In New York, you're typically dealing with 10-year leases, right? Minimum 5. So if you want to invest in building your store, at least you have some runway, you have some time to build the business up and make a profit and recoup the investment, and then hopefully make a profit on top of just the initial investment. ROI on a typical restaurant, if you're lucky, is 3 years, right? So it was really challenging there. And Hong Kong is a Cantonese-speaking Southern Chinese culture where the food tastes are very different than Northern China, and we sell a Northern Chinese food, which is a bit heavier, spicy, comfort food. Southern Chinese like light food. They like noodles. They like seafood. They don't like spicy, and there's a distrust between Hong Kong and Beijing, right? It's political history, very different. Whereas expats, Americans, Brits, Aussies, they love this food from Beijing. And when we opened in New York, it was just right off the bat, super exciting, super popular, super unique. So it's just a totally different reception to what we do here. And people are willing to pay prices that are normal, reasonable. You'll pay 10, 12, 15 bucks for a good burger, a good pizza, a good burrito, a good whatever. And that's what we charge, right? And it's just, and that allows us to run a business where it's still hard to make a profit, but at least you have a chance, So it's a different ball game here.
So there's a large Chinese population in New York City. I mean, we've got Chinatown, and I don't know if those people are from different regions of China, but how has your Bing been accepted by the Chinese that have patronized Mr. Bing? What do they think?
70% love it. 30% complain that it's either that it's too expensive because it's more expensive than it is in China, which of course it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, welcome to America.
Right, exactly. Or that it's not the kind of Bing that they had in their hometown. It's a different style, and therefore they're upset. But 70% love it. They're just so happy that they can finally get a Bing in America. They can finally get Gen Bing in New York City, right? And they think our quality's good. They think our staff are good. They like our branding. They like the story. They find it fascinating that it's an American guy that actually started it and not a guy from China. They for the most part they love it, but you do have your haters. You have your haters. If you go on Yelp and read our reviews, 4 stars out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5, the haters are always complaining about the price for the most part, or that it's not made the way that they had it when they grew up in their particular hometown, that it's a little bit different, and therefore they go crazy. They're upset. So you can't make everyone happy, but for the most part, because our mission statement is a 2-part mission statement. Number 1 is to introduce Americans to what things are, right? Our second mission statement is to help Chinese people in America return to their childhood through feelings of nostalgic food.
I love it.
That they used to eat growing up.
Yeah.
So that's our 2-pronged mission statement. But when you're in America, it's like 70% Americans eating it, maybe 30% non-Americans, especially in New York, where you have a ton of tourists and immigrants and things. So, I am very excited to grow Mr. Bing eventually out of New York to where you're dealing with more the typical American city or the typical American state that's more representative of the larger American demographic. Because New York City, Manhattan's as you know, it's like a little bubble, right? It's different. It's just different, than the rest of the country. So it resonates well here, but, we don't want to go too crazy building like crazy here. We recently have a partnership with some investors from California who see the potential for Mr. Bing to become either a regional or a nationwide concept. And they're very keen to see how it works in the suburbs and in second tier and third tier cities like Philadelphia or Indianapolis or or San Francisco or Salt Lake City, Dallas, Chicago, Boston, other places.
Well, Boston, again, has a Chinese population as well. And I spent lots of time in Boston, and I see that being a logical step. Not so far from New York. You could kind of get your feet wet there before going to maybe San Francisco. And then, like you said, the second-tier markets. I see tremendous potential for this.
Yeah, I think people are looking for something different. They're looking for something new. You can be anywhere in America or anywhere in the world for that matter now. And you'll see on your Instagram feed all sorts of crazy cool food from everywhere. So food ideas are spreading a lot faster than ever before, and acceptance of new things is happening a lot faster than ever before.
And I think Bing is a powerful name. It's simple, it's quick, it's short, everybody gets it. I mean, it's easily branded, right? I think you got a lot going for you.
Well, that's why we did. That's why we called him Mr. Bing instead of Goldberg's Chinese Crepes. Bing is this character here. Bing means crepe in Chinese. Okay. And you go to our back of our T-shirt, and that's the character.
That's
so
a beautiful character, by the way. Totally.
Yeah. So
those are rad T-shirts. Do you obviously sell logo merchandise as well, as you should?
Yeah, MrBing.com, Mr-Bing.com. You'll find us. We have a store there. Our T-shirts are for sale in this charcoal gray with the orange, and we have a royal blue color one as well, which pops. Looks kind of like the New York Mets colors, blue and orange.
That makes sense.
And the hats as well.
Nice.
Sell gift cards. Very limited selection. No, but people like the T-shirts. They're super soft. They're that Bella Canvas or next level sort of brand. That super soft, stretchy stuff people like. So, we sell it.
So it's a very unique product, a very unique food. Is there any similar competition for Bing at this point that is another traditional Chinese food that's sort of like it, but it isn't exactly John Bing? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, there are some other Bing concepts popping up. There's a couple of others in New York that have recently started in Brooklyn and downtown. You can get it in Flushing, Queens, for actually quite a few years already. They've been selling it in the food court of like the really local Chinese like shopping malls out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's in Portland, Oregon. You can get it a place called Bing Me, Bingmi. I've met them before. I flew out to Portland to see what they were doing a few years ago. I think they have 2 trucks now, one in downtown and one at Portland State University, I believe. Someone I think has a pop-up in San Francisco that might become a permanent place called Tai Chi Jianbing. In LA, there was someone with a food truck called Buddha Bing. I flew out there and I met them too. I don't think they're still in business. London has one called Mei Mei Streetcar. She used to teach English in China, and she brought it back to London. She does like the weekend festival food markets in London. Australia has a concept that has like 20 locations in all the Westfield shopping mall food courts around like Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Sydney. It's called Bing Boy. So it's happening.
So it's a movement.
Trend. Like,
yeah.
It is. It
Nice.
is. We're kind of the first ones to do it here in New York, like in a real strong branded way with a story and strong marketing and media the way we do it. But it's a trend. It's a trend. Yeah. It's happening. There's different types of Bings. Most people are doing the Gen Bing, but then there's because Bing means crepe or pancake in Chinese, right? So there's scallion pancakes, which people get confused. Scallion pancakes are from Taiwan. Those are the thicker, greasier fried ones.
Yeah.
Don't get confused. That's totally different. That's more like a little appetizer, not a meal. There's Twin Bing. There's another guy here doing Twin Bing, which is like the spring crepes. Those are also different. So there's different types of Bings, right? We do Gen Bing, which is this Gen Bing, grilled crepes. That's the Goldberg part.
Yeah, I like the grilled part. I'm not a big fried food fan, but grilled works for me. So I like that.
It is the crepe is thin. It's made of the mung bean flour is actually very high in protein. People don't realize that. It's a very common grain that grows in northern China and in Korea, which borders northern China. So that's why a lot of things up there are made with mung bean. I mean, it can be made. I like mine double. I make mine high protein, low carb, meaning I make my Bing with half the amount of batter as usual. So I use like 2 or 3 ounces of the batter instead of 5. So the crepe is smaller, but then I use 2 eggs. I scramble 2 eggs across the top of it, so the egg flows and spreads out beyond the circumference of the crepe itself. So the crepe almost becomes made of almost fully of egg.
Right.
It's very, very proteiny. So that's my and then I'll do everything else normal. So it's a high protein, low carb version. Eventually we'll be able to introduce different batter types. So in China they have like purple rice flour. So you can use purple rice flour to make it, and the crepe ends up becoming purple, which is really cool and very healthy too. There's millet, there's buckwheat, there's all the different types of flour combos that you can introduce. Once people start to learn what Bings are, and it becomes a little more mainstream, then you can offer those options, right? Right now we keep it simple. We just do the one most common, the mung bean flour, the green bean flour version.
Yeah, that's the original.
You don't want to confuse people, right? They're just trying to learn what Bings are in the first place. If you do in Hong Kong, when we first did it, we were like, step 1, step 2, step 3. Choose your flour base. Do you want the mung bean? Do you want the purple rice, or you want the millet flour? And then step 2, choose your sauces, choose your fillings, choose your topping. Right. And everyone was like, huh?
Make your own Bing. Yeah.
Make your own Bing. And we thought that was like the Chipotle style, right?
Right.
That whole but it didn't work. It just didn't work because people didn't even know what it is. They're like, I don't know what to order. What's good? Just tell me. So then we're like, right. So then that's what we do. The menu has like 4 things on it or 6 things on it. It's the classic vegetarian. It's the Peking duck. It's the drunken chicken. It's the barbecue pork, or it's the kimchi. That's it.
Oh, so they're all priced differently. It's not, you get your base Bing, and then if you want to add the pork to it, it's this. But it's like specialty Bing. You can get this Bing, this Bing, this Bing, or that Bing.
Yeah, choose
That's
options
simple.
1 through 6.
Okay, that's cool.
Point to the picture and choose which one you like. And if you want to customize it, you can.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you want your Peking duck bing with 2 eggs instead of 1, or you don't like cilantro, so you want a duck bing but no cilantro.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Of course, you can customize it. But we make it simple for most people. Point to the picture and choose what you want. And we craft it in a way that we know it's good. Each of them are good. We're helping you make your decision. And you don't want people to be befuddled and bemuddled and like confused at the cash register what to order. You really want to try to make it clear and simple for people, especially with a new food they've never had before.
This is great. Awesome. Really, really exciting concept, Brian. It's been awesome. How can our audience find you and connect with you and all that sort of thing? Why don't you tell me, what's your website?
So we're at Mr-Bing.com, mr-bing.com.
Okay.
Yep. And Instagram, we're at Mr. Bing NYC, so at MRBING-NYC.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and our email is just info@mrbing.com, info@mr-bing.com. Yeah, our website has all that contact information in there. You can submit requests or questions about anything. Yeah, and you can. Our press page is on there. There was a huge Thrillist video that came out about us just yesterday. If you follow Thrillist, they did a really good story on us. We've been on the Today Show.
That's awesome. That's excellent. Oh my God! I mean, that is like priceless press right there, isn't it?
Yeah, Hoda and Savannah Guthrie and Carson Daly were eating Bings 2 weeks ago on air.
That is. Oh, I'm sorry. I watch the Today Show almost every day. I must have missed that. I'm so sorry. That is. I wish I had seen that episode.
That's okay. You can go on our website. You find it.
I'm going to check it out. I'm absolutely going to go back there. I'm fascinated with this whole thing. Your story is fascinating. The concept and how it came to be. And, I mean, it sounds like you're having a ton of fun doing this, too. It's not just a business. It's a passion, and it's fun, and it's cool, right?
Yeah, it is. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I feel like I found my thing,
Oh,
like
you have, for sure.
My
I want to see
life,
this nationwide. You got to keep this rocking and rolling. That's what this business is all about. It's about inspiration and, execution and having an idea and having a dream and just following it all the way. And you're well on your way. But this is an awesome episode, and I'm really pleased that you were a guest today, Brian. Anything else you want to share that we missed?
No, just love to have a nice little Mr. Bing, little pop-up, little kiosk at the ski resort.
Right.
Next to the lift, while you're waiting, you get a little hot Bing.
Yeah.
Before you go up the slopes. It's like my little dream of mine someday.
Hey, when we first got on the phone, you showed me some really cool, memorabilia from China. You not only studied Chinese in college, you're fluent in Mandarin, but it became sort of a second culture for you, and now your place is, filled with all these cool items that you wouldn't see every day. Want to show us any of those?
Yeah, sure. Take a quick little walk around the pad here.
I found it really interesting. I think the audience will too. What are some of the cool pieces?
Yeah, sure. Well, what do we got here? Let me see if I can turn the camera around. Well, this is just a tapestry in the bedroom, it's like a landscape painting of a very dreamy. It's actually a Hermes silk scarf. Super intricate.
Oh yeah. That's beautiful.
With all the old scenery, and the landscape, and the old music, and the old, all that stuff, and it's just, I just love this kind of thing.
You must miss being in China.
I do. Well, there's my old baseball cards from 1984, but that's not Chinese. But there's my Don Mattingly rookie. There he is.
Some of those are probably worth some money.
Yeah, they're all right. But then we got this is a modern Chinese sculptor of. This is one of the soldiers from the 1960s. That they crafted with ballerina shoes, so it's
I see
combination. Yeah, this is signed by the artist. I actually bought this in Singapore. It's made of bronze, but painted in a very Chinese red.
Right.
And this
it totally is.
Mao's old Red Army. It's become a little bit of an artistic form of expression, taking some of these old Mao communist things and turning them into these mixtures of art. Then over here is kind of, I guess, the piece de resistance.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
His name is Fritz. That's our dog. He's very easy. He doesn't really, pee or poop in the house very much. He's 2,000 years old.
Wow.
He's from Sichuan province. He was dug up maybe about 60 years ago when they were building some highways in China. Literally, it's a Han Dynasty 2,000-year-old dog that was buried with like someone that was probably the governor of that little province or something back in the day. And then we have this is a calligraphy here. This is about 400 years old. It's a poem. It's a poem about nature.
Yeah.
It's written in old classical Chinese.
Beautiful pieces.
It's about 10 foot tall. And it's written in a particular style that I really like. A couple of bonsai trees there.
I noticed Chinese, that too. Really brings you back, huh?
It does. This is a modern Chinese painter called Liu Yan. He does paintings from his childhood, a lot of children-inspired paintings. This is like a little bit of a Chinese chorus. We got a bit of a Chinese furniture theme.
That's a beautiful piece. Yeah.
Yeah, it has the traditional Chinese little, doors.
For sure.
Doors on it. You can watch Rachel Maddow if you want. And then we got this is like a 700-year-old vase that has a landscape painting on it. You can see the inscriptions. This is from the Yuan dynasty when Genghis Khan used to rule China, basically. It's an old flower vase. And this is like this is a garden seat. It weighs a good 30 or 40 pounds. This is about 500 years old as well. You can actually sit on it. It's really solid, really durable. And it's the same turquoise color as that guy over there. And some mahjong tiles that are like, these are old mahjong tiles from the 50s. They're kind of fun to play with. So yeah, quite a few.
Nice. Oh, I'm glad you shared that with us. You've sort of given us a crash course in Chinese art history.
Oh, a little bit. I've learned a little bit over the years. Got some friends that work in Chinese art collectibles. So it's part of my little world here. Even though I've moved back to New York, I still get to do a lot of China and Asia related things. New York's great for that. I'm a member of the China Institute, National Committee on U.S.-China Relations, Asia Society, that kind of stuff. So I get to still be very involved in the cross-cultural stuff. I'd like to say Mr. Bing's not just a restaurant, but we're kind of like a U.S.-China cultural bridge in a way.
I see that.
So we like to teach our staff a little bit of Mandarin when we can, or offer free Mandarin lessons if they have time to take the class. And
that's a marketing hook, right? That's a hook.
Yeah,
you can use that.
Try to recruit. Recruiting staff, good staff is hard. You got to try to differentiate your company. Why come work for Mr. Bing instead of Chipotle, right? What's the difference, right? Things like that. Right?
Killer. Well, I super appreciate you joining us today on the Restaurant Rockstars podcast. That was Mr. Brian Goldberg from Mr. Bing. I will share all of the contact information in the show notes. Thanks for joining us, and thank you again, Brian.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate it.